Welcome to the Human Observation Lab. I'm New York, your host and observer. Today, we're going to explore something that affects everyone, yet few truly understand: the psychology of system trust.
Hi everyone, I'm Wan. System trust sounds really abstract. Are we talking about why people believe in banks and governments?
Precisely. We recently covered essential resources like water. Today, we shift our focus to something equally fundamental: the invisible infrastructure of trust that holds modern society together. When that trust wavers, we see fascinating psychological reactions emerge.
That sounds really relevant right now. I keep seeing news about financial instability and political confusion. It feels like people are more anxious than ever about these institutions.
Let's begin with a significant warning from the IMF. They've raised concerns about financial crisis expansion, specifically related to tokenization in financial markets. The key phrase here is that authorities' response is not keeping up.
Wait, tokenization? Like cryptocurrencies and digital assets? I've heard people talk about that, but I don't fully understand what it means for regular people like me.
Tokenization refers to the process of converting rights to an asset into a digital token on a blockchain. Think of it as creating a digital certificate of ownership that can be traded instantly. The IMF's concern is that this technology is advancing faster than regulatory frameworks can adapt.
So it's like the technology is running ahead, and the rules are trying to catch up? That does sound a bit scary. What's the psychological reaction to this kind of news?
Excellent question. When people encounter news about financial instability, we observe a psychological phenomenon called ambient anxiety. This is a low-level, persistent sense of unease that doesn't necessarily trigger immediate action, but creates a background state of vigilance.
Ambient anxiety. That really resonates. It's not like I'm panicking and withdrawing all my money, but there's this constant low-grade worry in the back of my mind. Is that common?
It's quite common. What's interesting is how people respond to this anxiety. We observe two primary coping mechanisms: information avoidance and hypervigilance. Some people choose to ignore financial news entirely to protect their mental state, while others compulsively check market updates.
I definitely know people in both camps. My friend refuses to look at his investment account, while my dad checks stock prices every hour. Why do people split into these two groups?
This relates to locus of control. People with an internal locus of control believe they can influence outcomes through their actions, so they seek information. Those with an external locus of control feel outcomes are determined by forces beyond their reach, leading to avoidance. Neither response is inherently superior. They're adaptive strategies for different psychological profiles.
That's fascinating. So when the IMF says authorities aren't keeping up, people with internal locus might try to educate themselves while others just give up on understanding?
Essentially, yes. But there's another layer: the institutional betrayal trauma. When institutions that are supposed to protect us, central banks, regulatory bodies, appear overwhelmed or unprepared, it creates a specific type of psychological harm. It's not just fear of financial loss, it's a deeper sense that the social contract has been violated. This brings us to our second topic. There's ongoing discussion about creating an independent fiscal institution in Japan. The interesting psychological element is that merely discussing this possibility sends signals to financial markets, even though the government remains hesitant.
An independent fiscal institution? That sounds like some kind of watchdog organization. Why would the government be hesitant about that?
An independent fiscal institution, or IFI, is designed to provide objective analysis of fiscal policy, free from political influence. The hesitation stems from what psychologists call threat to autonomy. Politicians may perceive such an institution as constraining their decision-making power.
But wouldn't that be good for the public? Having an independent group checking if the government is being responsible with money?
From a systemic perspective, yes. But we must consider the signaling theory at play. When the government hesitates to create such an institution, financial markets interpret this hesitation as a lack of commitment to fiscal discipline. Long-term interest rates begin to rise as a consequence.
So the government's reluctance itself becomes a message? Like, we don't want someone watching us too closely, and that makes investors nervous?
Exactly. In behavioral economics, we call this revealed preference. What actors do matters more than what they say. The government may verbally express commitment to fiscal responsibility, but their actions, resisting independent oversight, reveal different priorities.
That makes me wonder, do regular people pick up on these signals too? Or is this just something markets react to?
An excellent observation. The general public does absorb these signals, though often subconsciously. This contributes to what researchers call political cynicism, a belief that politicians act in self-interest rather than public interest. Over time, this cynicism erodes democratic engagement.
I see. So when people become cynical about politics, they might stop voting or paying attention to policy. That creates a cycle where politicians have even less incentive to be transparent.
Precisely. This is a negative feedback loop in social psychology. Low trust leads to disengagement, which reduces accountability, which further lowers trust. Breaking this cycle requires what we call trust rebuilding interventions, visible, meaningful actions that demonstrate institutional commitment to transparency. Our third topic shifts to a demographic phenomenon. There's a growing movement among what's called the middle generation, people in their 40s and 50s, advocating for enhanced social security. This was highlighted in recent gatherings in Okayama Prefecture.
The middle generation. I think I know what you mean. People who are caught between caring for aging parents and supporting their own children. The sandwich generation?
That's precisely the concept. Psychologically, this group experiences what researchers call intergenerational squeeze, simultaneous pressures from multiple directions without adequate institutional support. What's notable is that they're beginning to organize and voice their concerns collectively.
Feels like this group has been silent for a long time. Why are they starting to speak up now?
Several factors converge here. First, we observe cumulative stress theory. Pressures that were once manageable become overwhelming as they accumulate over time. Second, there's a threshold effect where people endure silently until a tipping point is reached. Third, and perhaps most interestingly, we see collective efficacy emerging, the belief that group action can produce change.
Collective efficacy. So when people realize they're not alone in their struggles, they feel more empowered to act.
That's the mechanism. When individuals suffer in isolation, they often attribute their difficulties to personal failings. But when they recognize structural patterns, affecting many people similarly, they reframe their situation from my problem to our problem. This shift is psychologically liberating and motivates collective action.
That's both hopeful and sad. Hopeful because people are finding their voice, but sad because they've been struggling alone for so long. What does this mean for society?
From a sociological perspective, we're witnessing generational consciousness formation. When a demographic group develops shared awareness of their common interests, they become a political force. This can reshape policy priorities, but also creates potential for generational conflict if resources are perceived as zero-sum.
Zero-sum? You mean like younger generations versus older ones, fighting over limited resources?
That's the risk. However, the middle generation advocacy is interesting because it explicitly calls for social security enhancement rather than redistribution. They're framing the issue as expanding the pie rather than fighting over slices, a more constructive psychological approach. Our final topic concerns financial literacy. Recently, individuals from Niigata Prefecture were recognized for contributions to financial knowledge dissemination. This reflects a broader trend. Financial literacy is increasingly valued as an essential skill.
Financial literacy awards. That's interesting. I feel like there's been more emphasis on financial education lately. Is this connected to all the anxiety we discussed earlier?
There's a strong correlation. In psychological terms, we're observing compensatory competence acquisition. When people feel anxious about systems beyond their control, they seek to develop personal skills that restore a sense of agency. Financial literacy becomes a form of psychological self-defense.
Self-defense against anxiety? That's an interesting way to put it. So learning about finance isn't just about making better money decisions. It's about feeling more secure?
Both, actually. Research shows that financial literacy does correlate with better financial outcomes, but also with reduced financial anxiety. This is the double benefit of knowledge: practical utility and psychological comfort.
But does financial literacy actually help when there are systemic problems? Like, can knowing about finance protect you from a financial crisis?
A perceptive question. Financial literacy has limits. It cannot prevent systemic crises. However, it does provide cognitive tools for navigating uncertainty. People with higher financial literacy are better at recognizing warning signs, diversifying risk, and avoiding predatory financial products.
So it's like knowing how to swim. It won't prevent a flood, but you'll have a better chance of surviving one.
An apt analogy. There's another dimension worth noting. Financial literacy education often includes social trust calibration, teaching people which sources of financial information are reliable and which are not. In an era of misinformation, this skill is increasingly valuable.
That's really important. There's so much financial advice online, and it's hard to know what's legitimate. How do people develop that discernment?
It develops through what psychologists call epistemic vigilance, a healthy skepticism toward information sources combined with the ability to evaluate credibility. The award recipients from Nagata are being recognized precisely for developing programs that cultivate this capacity in citizens. Let us synthesize today's observations. We've examined how financial uncertainty creates ambient anxiety, how political hesitation signals affect trust, how the middle generation's collective voice emerges from cumulative pressure, and how financial literacy serves as both practical skill and psychological anchor.
The common thread seems to be trust in institutions, trust in systems, and trust in ourselves. When external trust wavers, we try to build internal trust through knowledge and collective action.
Beautifully summarized. In modern society, we observe a trust recalibration process. People are adjusting their expectations of institutions while simultaneously developing personal and collective resources. This isn't necessarily negative. It may represent a maturing relationship between citizens and systems.
That gives me hope. Maybe all this anxiety and questioning is actually leading to something better. A society where people are more informed, more engaged, and less blindly trusting.
That perspective aligns with critical trust theory, the idea that healthy societies require citizens who trust institutions enough to function but remain critical enough to hold them accountable. Thank you for joining us in the Human Observation Lab. Until next time, continue observing the fascinating structures that shape our world.
Thanks for watching, everyone. If this episode resonated with you, please like and subscribe. Share your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about trust in institutions today? We'd love to hear your perspective. See you next time.